Guys, I felt inspired by the dreary, depressing northern weather. I felt very inspired, and it made me think of the play Macbeth, because witches on a heath, rain, thunder and lightning storms. I was like, this is the perfect play to do in the height of the British winter. We're specifically going to be looking at Lady Macbeth's monologue from Act 1, Scene 4. Now, she has 2 monologues in that scene. We're going to be looking at the latter half because I just feel like that's way more interesting. But if you want, give us a shout in the comments below, and if you want to learn the first monologue from that scene, we can do that too. Just a little overview of what this lesson's going to cover. Firstly, I'm just going to remind you of the summary of the play because, I mean, I even get confused. If I haven't seen a Shakespeare play in a while, I'll confuse it with Othello, I'll confuse it with this or that. So yeah, give you a little summary of the play as a whole. Then we're going to look at the characters, or the 3 main characters that we're focusing on here. And then we will do a breakdown, a hardcore, deep dive breakdown into Lady Macbeth's monologue. Macbeth is set in Scotland. In the first scene, brave warriors Macbeth and Banquo have won a battle. They are greeted by 3 witches on the heath who reveal 3 predictions to Macbeth: that he'll become Thane of Glamis, Thane of Cawdor, and the King. Now, Macbeth is already Thane of Glamis, and is swiftly given the title of Thane of Cawdor by King Duncan on his return. Because the witches' first 2 predictions are true, Macbeth believes that the 3rd must come true also. So when Macbeth gets home from this battle, he's awarded this Thane of Cawdor title, and he tells his wife about these predictions from the witches. And in turn, this leads them to plot Duncan's murder. Once they kill King Duncan, they are hailed King and Queen of Scotland, but their personal relationship begins to break down because they're both haunted by the guilt of their actions. As the story continues, Macbeth feels that Banquo is suspicious of him for Duncan's death, so Macbeth hires assassins to kill Banquo and his son Fleance. The witches also told Banquo he'll be the father of kings, so Macbeth doesn't want Fleance threatening his newfound royalty. Banquo is murdered, but Fleance escapes. The next thing we know, Macbeth is getting haunted by Banquo's ghost. So after this haunting, Macbeth decides to go and consult the witches for another prophecy. So when he visits the witches this time, they tell him 3 prophecies, one of which is Beware Macduff. Now, Macduff is another noble warrior of Scotland who's left his family to go and help King Duncan's sons rally the English troops to fight Macbeth. Obviously, Macbeth gets wind of this and he sends killers to go and murder Macduff's family. Can you see that the more this play goes on, Macbeth just becomes more and more bloodthirsty? Meanwhile, Lady Macbeth is driven mad, eventually committing suicide. And Duncan's sons and Macduff bring the English army to kill Macbeth. Macduff, of course, wishes to avenge his family's death. So he challenges Macbeth to a duel and he beheads him. That's the end of our tragic hero. And lastly, Duncan's sons resume their rightful place on the Scottish throne, and balance is restored. The raven himself is hoarse, that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan upon my battlements. Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here and fill me from the crown to the toe top full of direst cruelty. Make thick my blood. Stop up the access and passage to remorse, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the effect and it.
Come to my woman's breast, take my milk for gall, you murdering ministers. Wherever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief. Come, thick night, and pall thee in the dunnest smoke of hell, that my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, hold! Hold.
So she begins with the lines, "The raven himself is hoarse." So when we think of ravens, think of colour imagery. This raven is symbolic, so colour imagery here, black represents death, destruction, the end of something. And also, ravens are a type of bird. I mean, they don't kill things, they're not predatory birds, but they do eat dead meat. They do eat carrion. So even their presence is associated with some form of death. Next, we have personification, that tend on mortal thoughts. I love this line because it implies that there are spirits that are kind of possessing her. Like, she's kind of passive to this want, this need, this desire to murder Duncan. She's kind of playing it from that angle here, you know, that tend on mortal thoughts. It's like they're kind of controlling what she thinks and what she wants. It's as though she has no choice but to follow through with these thoughts of murder because the spirits have somehow persuaded her to. It also fits really nicely with the theme of the supernatural that continues to appear in Macbeth. I think it's really important as well to talk about the extended metaphor that is throughout the entire of the monologue. So if we look at the lines, "Unsex me here and fill me from the crown to the toe top full of direst cruelty." What a line. Throughout the entire monologue, Lady Macbeth is commanding these spirits to put evil thoughts in her, to give her the courage to be a traitor, to be a murderer. It's as though she has a baseline knowledge that humans want to be good on some level. But here she intentionally goes against it. She asks these dark spirits to kind of fill her up to the crown, you know. Crown meaning head, and then toes, obviously toes. So she's really seeing herself as a vessel. She's offering herself up to these dark spirits as a vessel. Fill me, I don't care. Do what you will for me to have this need to be queen. If we look at this quote a little bit closer, "Unsex me here." Now there's two ways we could interpret this. If she wants to be unsexed, my first thought is, does she want to be degendered? Does she want to be made a man instead of a woman? Because she might have this assumption, and this is traditional gender stereotypes here. She might have this assumption that men are less sensitive, therefore will be better able to deal with committing murder. That's the first interpretation. The second interpretation is, does she want to be unsexed entirely, in the sense of she wants her humanity to be taken away from her, because to be human means to feel a spectrum of emotions, of joy, but also regret. So is this what she's saying? Is she saying, take away my humanity so I no longer feel the consequences of the actions I'm about to take? You can argue both in the exam, as long as you back it up, as always. Then we have a hyperbole. Let's just remind ourselves what a hyperbole is. So usually it's an exaggerated literary device. So it's not meant to be taken literally. So it's kind of like a metaphor, but it's over exaggerated to the max. And in the quote, make thick my blood, stop up the access and passage to remorse. Like, you can't physically do that. You can't stop up your own veins, to stop these feelings of regret and sadness and guilt, like making their way to your heart. It's impossible. So that's the exaggeration there. That's what makes it hyperbole. Let's look at the first part of this sentence. If you have thick blood, if you get wounded, if you cut your skin, you're more likely to form a blood clot, as in on the outside of the skin. So it's less like you're less likely to bleed out. So you're not going to be as weak if your blood is thick. Now let's look at it symbolically. She's asking the spirits to make her blood so thick that nothing, no human emotion, can make its way up her veins to her heart, which is where we consider it the heart is symbolic of emotion, of compassion, of love. She doesn't want any of those feelings. She even acknowledges nature as well. She says that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose. Let nothing stop me, not even nature, not even the human nature of kindness. She knows naturally a human would feel regret and remorse after murdering someone. So here she's commanding the spirits to make her impenetrable to all of these emotions. Juxtaposition is the next literary device in the quote, take my milk for gall. Gall is poison or acid. Breast milk is nurturing. It's supposed to nurture the baby so that it can survive, so that it can grow. It also seals a bond between mother and child. Now, she wants to be queen so badly that she's willing to swap out these things. Take my milk for gall. That's how much she wants it. It's interesting because obviously women don't just have milk in their boobs like 24/7, like they have to be pregnant. So I have this theory that at the beginning of the play, Lady Macbeth might have been pregnant but have lost a child. And one of the reasons why she so desperately wants to be queen is because she's in this grieving period and she's in this bitter, resentful period of dark spirits have taken my child without reason. Doesn't matter whether you're a good or a bad person, but they've taken my child from me. And I know how powerful these spirits are now because they have the power to do that, to take a child from their mother. So you know what? I'm going to ally myself with them to get what I want. Because what's the point in living if bad things are going to happen to you? I will be the bad thing that happens to Duncan. So you can really see the way Shakespeare has structured her character. When you put it like that, you're kind of like, I can see why someone would maybe be driven to murder in that regard in a play, in the context of a play. Because when you're vulnerable, if these feelings of confusion and anger and resentment and bitterness, you might find yourself doing things that seem out of character. The next quote, murdering ministers, backs up this idea as well. It's like she's directly talking to them. Well, all the way through the monologue, she's directly talking to these dark spirits. But here specifically, there's such malintent in the way she says it. You murdering ministers, wherever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief. There's so much just deep anger. She's acknowledging that these dark spirits are ministers, like the government, and they just decide to just like hand out death to whoever they wish, wherever they wish. You know, that's kind of how she's approaching them, murdering ministers. And this alliteration drives home her deep maternal fury at these dark spirits. Again, just continuing that strain of thought. Sightless substances, that sibilance there, you can hear the bitter resentment in the repetition of this S sound. Last 2 points before we finish. There's something interesting here in her opening herself up as a vessel to dark spirits. She doesn't really acknowledge God until the very end. At the beginning, you're like, does she even believe in God? She's just kind of streaming, raging, bring these spirits to me. There might be a little bit of fear there as well, because what she's doing, obviously, is it goes against human nature, goes against God. But right at the end, she reveals her fear, and also she gives us a little glimpse into how this murder is going to affect her character later on in the play. So the reason why she summons Thick Night is because she doesn't want heaven to see the murder. She doesn't want God to see the murder. This is really important to her character arc. She begins this monologue summoning evil to consume her, and she ends the monologue mentioning heaven. And as we know, by the end of the play, she's driven mad by guilt and commits suicide. Before she's driven to suicide, she has visions of Duncan. She compares Duncan to her father, and she can't wash the bloodstains from her hands. This is all too much for her to handle, and she commits suicide. So Shakespeare does something brilliantly here. He plants a seed in the audience's mind, gives us a clue or a glimpse into how she's going to handle the aftermath of the murder. Lastly, we have personification, keen knife. She gives the knife a human quality, the quality of keenness. This implies that it's the knife that has the desire to kill, not her. She has to summon evil forces outside of herself so she can almost become possessed to do the deed. So again, we're getting little clues that she's not going to fare well after this murder. Well, that was a lot. I think I deserve a cup of tea. That reminds me, actually, Sped's my partner. For Christmas, he treated me to some CBD green tea from the Tonic in Hebden Bridge, a gorgeous little town in the north. Oh my God, it's so good. It relaxes you, but it also perks you up at the same time. I'm gonna go and get a cup of tea. You should too, because you've worked bloody hard by watching this video. Please give this a like if you enjoyed it, because it helps just get it out into the algorithm. It helps it reach more students far and wide, any students that are struggling with English, just any people in general who want to learn about Shakespeare and just want to tap into those emotions. It's really important. I really appreciate it if you just quick thumbs up, takes you 1 second. Also, I do have some extra notes on Patreon. You get some behind the scenes content, and there are in-depth notes that I don't really explore in these videos. You get even more, all my slides, and I've done like really in-depth notes for each literary device that I've covered. So you've got it all there. You don't even have to take notes when you do this YouTube video, watch this YouTube video. You can literally just head to Patreon. Also, before I forget, you get access to all my meditation videos. And I don't really make a thing of this, but before I read a book or before I study, I do a quick meditation because it helps me create space in my mind for the information I'm about to read. It helps me retain all of that info so much better than if I was just to go straight from, cooking or being at work to reading. It just creates that real nice buffer. So you get access to all my meditations. Sounds pretty good, right? I feel like you should go and check it out. Right, that's it. I'm off. I'm gonna pop the kettle on. You should too.